Good evening. Good evening. Thank you all for coming out here to this wonderful event we have planned. My name is Joe Welker. I am the pastor here at East Craftsbury Presbyterian Church. I'm also probably the only Dodgers fan in this zip code tonight, so things are going well for me. It's great to be with you all tonight. I know we've had similar events like this before, and we're just excited to have it again. Great to have the conversations that happened beforehand. Certainly at our church, trying to address all different concerns of housing, poverty, and whatnot, or just any things that affect our community like this are a big concern of ours. Certainly grateful for Headwaters putting this on and coming out of those conversations that have happened at the back of our church on the fourth Sunday. Those are still going on for the different community housing forum every fourth Sunday at 4 p.m. in the back of the church if you'd like to be a part of those. For now, I'll just briefly introduce our different organizations. Of course, you should have all gotten a card of some kind, but we have Home Share Vermont here, the Greensboro Initiative of Habitat for Humanity, we have the Headwaters Community Trust, and we also have Representative Harpel, who is here this evening. And with that, I will turn it over to our panelists. Thank you.
What we're going to do is each panelist is going to introduce themselves and their organization, and they'll have about 10 minutes each to talk. And then we'll have some time together for questions, but we've found in these panels that the richest discussions come in sort of the more informal one-on-one time. So we're going to aim to wrap up the formal part by 7:30, and if you need to scoot out and go, you're welcome to do that, of course. And if you want to stay around and ask more questions, our panelists will be here until 8. So with that, I'll hand it back to Rick, and he'll introduce himself and Home Share Vermont.
Okay. Hi, I'm Rick Singari, and I am the Outreach and Communication Specialist at Home Share Vermont. And afterwards, if you have questions, I brought a whole team from Home Share Vermont. We've got one of our board members, Erica Perkins, longtime supporter and volunteer, Becky Arnold, and then Ann Farley, one of our case managers. So they're 10 times more brilliant than I am, so if you have questions, you can corner any one of us. We'd love to answer questions about home sharing. And basically what home sharing is someone who has room in their home who can ask for rent, or help, or a combination of the two, offering that to someone looking for an affordable place to live. And we do background and reference checks, and then we work to create a compatible match. And we've been doing this for 43 years. Now, we've heard a lot of talk this evening about, how do we build more homes? How do we find more housing for people? Do we make units multi-purpose? We had a guest who wrote to us once and said, Vermont might not have enough homes, but we have enough bedrooms. And it really is a brilliant point of what home sharing is all about. There is room in homes that are already built, that don't need to be constructed, that someone can offer to share, and they can get help, they can get rent, they can get a combination of the two. There's no age or income requirements to be part of Home Share Vermont on either side. So we have guests as young as 19, as old as 82. We have people offering their homes who are 28 up to 100. So if someone has an idea that this might be for them, they can check with us and see if this will work. We have, one match where the guest is helping the host log. Now that's not something that happens every day. It's not something we usually ask about. But when someone comes to us and has an idea, we just might be able to find that compatible match for that person. What we do is when someone applies, we do background and reference checks. The next step is a case manager will interview them and learn what is an important match for them. What's the ideal match? If they're the host, what help they need, what rent they need, also their interests. right? We want to make sure that there's some commonalities, and so that when we create a match, it'll last. And then if it's a guest, we'll find out what skills they have, what they're looking for, and see if we can create that match. When we have an idea of a good match, our case managers will call each other and tell the host about this potential guest and vice versa, see if they'd like to meet. The next step is an introduction with the case manager present. We ask a lot of questions. We've been doing this for 43 years. We've come up with all kinds of questions over 43 years. And we'll sit down and have the two meet each other, answer questions, and then afterwards check back with both and see if this might be a good match. The next step, if they both want to move forward, is a 2-week trial. Again, it gives people the idea, the sense of, is this the right person to move into my home? Is this the right home for me to move into? And also, sometimes, if it's a first-time home sharer, if home sharing is the right thing for them. It's not always for everybody, and we like to try to figure that out before the process goes too far. The next step after that would be the match itself, and we create an agreement that lists what the rent will be, what the help will be, how many hours a week that looks like, and then the rules of the home, and then they both agree to it. The agreement is in effect a month-to-month agreement, although most are longer term. Most go about 1 year to 5 years. The average right now is 2 years. We do have one that's on 18 years, and we do have one that's on 19 years. So sometimes we really get it right. But if we do our work up front, if we do, that due diligence in creating those matches, then they should last for a long time. The other thing is, you have the case manager, you have Ann, who you've been working with, and if anything needs to be changed or anything needs to be discussed, you can always call the case manager, even if that's been a 19-year agreement. We're still there. Like I said, we've been around for 43 years doing this. The host can ask for up to 12 hours a week in help, and that wouldn't be home health care. That's help around the home. So that's having an overnight presence. It might be cooking several times a week, light cleaning, running errands, or running people to an appointment. It could be pet care, it could be tech help, things like that. Right now, we do set a maximum rent of $650, and a host can also ask for a utility share if necessary. As people ask for more help, then they usually ask for less in rent. So the average rent right now that our guests are paying is $380 a month. When you look at a 1-bedroom apartment in Vermont, the average is about 4 times that. 30% of our hosts ask for no rent. They just want someone in the home. They just want someone there to help. They might want some company and that overnight presence so they feel secure. Big news for us is a couple years ago, we expanded, just bit off a little bit of the NEK, and we came to Craftsbury and Hardwick and Greensboro. This week, we'll be training 2 representatives from the Council on Aging, the NEK Council on Aging. We're partnering with them, and we'll be covering the entire Northeast Kingdom, probably within a month or so. Depends how quickly they get. I know. And that applause should be for the state legislatures who approved that in the budget. Now we can't expand everywhere in the state without partnering and making it economical for the state, but the state has come through with funding so we can expand to all the Northeast Kingdom. At the same time, we're expanding to all of the southeastern Vermont. This is really phenomenal when you consider it. We are now in 12 of the 14 counties in Vermont. If you go across the river to, I don't know which way that is, if you go across the river to New Hampshire, there are 0 home share organizations. Vermont gets it. It really is a Vermont principle, to share, to help each other, and the state has really helped us to be able to do that for as long as we've been doing it. Tell you one more thing, we'd love to talk to you about sharing your homes, but it works if there are people looking for a place to live. So please, if you know of anyone who needs a place to live, is looking for an affordable place to live, send them to us so we can answer their questions, because this is really a phenomenal idea, but in more rural communities, we're going to have more people offering homes than looking for homes. And the hard part for us in the more rural areas of the state is to find those guests. And if you know anyone who could utilize this, and it doesn't have to be a young person. We have people who move back to the state, grandparents who want to be close to their children and grandchildren. This is a phenomenal way for them to be able to come to Vermont or come back to Vermont. Someone who's taking a job in the area. This is a great way for them to move into an area and live affordably. And sometimes they're able to put money away and then have an apartment of their own or purchase a home on their own because of how much they save through home sharing. Thanks so much. Again, we'll be here for a lot of questions afterwards. We'll have some time to answer some, but also we'll stick around for as long as you need us if you have questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm going to turn the mic over to Kent.
Okay. Thanks, Rick. That was interesting. Got some questions for you later.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I appreciate being asked to speak tonight about the Greensboro initiative of Habitat for Humanity. We all know that it's going to take a number of different groups and approaches if we are going to provide more affordable housing in our region. As one of those groups, I hope tonight to help you understand who we are and what we do. You're likely aware of Habitat for Humanity. It's an international Christian-oriented nonprofit that was founded in 1976 for people of all faiths. Its vision is a world where everyone has a decent place to live. Its mission is to bring people together to build homes, communities, and hope. Its most famous volunteer, obviously, Jimmy Carter, right. Habitat seeks partner families who are in need of housing and are willing to partner with us. That means putting in 200 hours of sweat equity into the project. That includes construction activity and training classes in home finance and home maintenance. Plus, they need to be able to pay for a discounted mortgage, plus their other household expenses. Note, we only build homes for sale. We don't build homes for renting. Our particular focus is to build homes for families whose incomes range from 30 to 80% of the Orleans County area median income. And for a family of four, that currently is a range from $32,000 a year to $83,000 a year. That's the focus of what we're doing. We utilize both volunteers and professional subcontractors on our projects. So how did our local Greensboro initiative get started? Early on, with the Greensboro Housing Committee work, Patrick Shattuck from Rural Edge suggested that we should consider Habitat for Humanity as being a part of the effort to increase local housing inventory. Due to the geographical districting of Habitat International, it took us a while to settle in and become part of the affiliate that's in Montpelier. Their name is Central Vermont Habitat for Humanity. Their executive director, Zach Watson's support and encouragement was crucial to getting our initiative up and running. Central Vermont's been around since 1989 and has built over 30 homes for families in our area. The key steps along the way for us have been, with Zach's assistance, we held our first public meeting in May 2023 to judge community interest and willingness to volunteer. We were very pleased that night with the turnout, with the number of attendees who wanted to volunteer. volunteer. Out of that meeting, a local group of 8 volunteers agreed to serve on our steering committee. It's this steering committee that has taken us to where we are today. And I'm glad to say 3 of the steering committee members are here tonight: Tim, Rick, and Liz. We then obtained commitments from 3 anchor donors: Hill Farmstead Brewery, Jasper Hill Creamery, and Freeman Foundation. These commitments gave us a clear signal that we needed to move forward. And the next step, as any of you that have been involved in the push for affordable housing know, is that step 1 is finding a place to build. Sites are difficult to locate. But we were fortunate, and we found a lot in Greensboro Bend, where there had been a house fire in 2020. After an environmental review, we purchased that lot on Main Street in October 2024. And so with the commitment from our anchor donors and a focus on the project itself, and able to tell people where we were going to do what we were going to do, we started to execute a fundraising campaign. Our fundraising goal was established to cover the cost of construction plus a 10% contingency. And within the Habitat model, the construction costs end up being reimbursed through a variety of state, corporate, and foundation reimbursement grants. So we collect the money, build the house, get the reimbursement. And what that does is those funds flow into what we're calling an evergreen fund that provides capital for our next project. So we keep it rolling. Next, we hired a site supervisor to manage the construction. We were fortunate that Central Vermont down in Montpelier had a duplex under construction that they had done all the building plans and architectural design work on. They said, here, go ahead and build it. So we saved money on project design costs, obviously. We built up our volunteer base through Central Vermont's website, email updates, front porch forum, public events like Greensboro's Funky Fourth, and the Bend Block Party. We then started advertising for families interested in owning a Habitat home. We used a third-party firm to vet our prospective partners' financials, and then our group made in-person prospect visits and finally selected two families for our duplex that we're building right now. Down the road, we'll introduce those families to local banks interested in promoting affordable housing through discounted mortgages. So we're glad to say our project in Greensboro Bend is 50% complete. We're beginning to install exterior siding. We'll be painting in the interior soon, and we're expecting the project to be completed with the new owners moving in during the third quarter next year. I think it's the first new building in Greensboro Bend in a long, long time. So it's pretty exciting. We still need volunteers for the Greensboro Bend project, and I hope you consider joining in if you already haven't. Thank you, Linda.
It's fun.
You'll see notices in Front Porch Forum when we need volunteers, or you can contact me to find out how to sign up ahead of time. They have a volunteer website that I can help you negotiate a little bit. Thanks again to Headwaters Community Trust for sponsoring tonight and the opportunity to explain our initiative.
Thanks, Ken. And I had a really, really good time when the one little volunteer shift I had, so I encourage everybody else to get out there too when it's time. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. This event is actually sponsored by the Community Housing Forum, which has been meeting, like Joe said, in the back of the church. Back of the church, that makes it sound all mysterious. In that space there since March of 2023. And that is where the idea for Headwaters Community Trust started was through those conversations. At one point, one of our members, Mike, who doesn't like to be recognized, but one of our members brought a presentation about different shared equity models, and there were a bunch of us there who, when Mike walked us through this concept of shared equity homes, got really interested and excited, and we formed a small group that started learning and investigating and Googling and reading, and eventually we decided in June of 2024 to stand up an organization, to stand up a community land trust. And if you don't know what the community land trust model is, like I had no idea until pretty recently, we identified that model as fitting in our area because we feel it's a highly flexible and adaptable mechanism to develop permanently affordable home ownership opportunities on community-owned land. So that was the compelling thing for us, as well as the fact that the community land trust is a proven tool. There are over 300 community land trusts around the United States. And that means that it's a proven tool, and also we have all of those community land trusts to learn from and ask questions of, and to see what they've done in their areas. And we've learned a lot from that already, and I'm sure we will continue to. So we didn't have to invent the wheel, basically. And there are over 600 community land trusts around the world in all kinds of, urban places, rural places, islands. They're everywhere. So, and the community land trust model itself grew out of the civil rights movement in the South when black farmers were being displaced from their land. So that's the history that is behind the community land trust. So we incorporated in June of 2024, and we applied for and received, which was some kind of Christmas miracle, Hanukkah miracle, any kind of December miracle. We applied for and received our nonprofit status in December of last year. And we're formed to serve Albany, Craftsbury, Glover, and Greensboro, and adjoining communities. So we don't want to ever have to say no or leave anybody out. At this point, we're governed by an 8-member founding board, and we'll have our first board elections in December of this year. And I'm going to say a little bit more about this in a minute, but we are really actively looking for people to join Headwaters as members, and we're actively looking for people who are interested in being on our board. So I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. But that's how we came to be, and we are focused in particular on home ownership opportunities. And right now we're in a process of transitioning from organizing to operating. So I think we were in this space, many of you might have been in this space with John Davis, who's our mentor in the community land trust world, in September, so about a year ago. We did a soft launch announcement. And since then, we've been working really hard with to do a lot of outreach and bring in members and build trust and listen to what people think we want affordable housing to look like here. This isn't really at a great angle, but our question is, I have Rick. Our question at this point as an organization is how can we create affordable housing here? And I really want to thank anybody who came and enjoyed the meal and helped us think about that question. And this is thank you very much. This is the very beginning of what will be probably a longer process than any of us really might hope for. I think if somebody, like if $20 million dropped down from the sky, we would all be really excited and we could have housing for everyone, but doesn't seem like it's the way the world works. So we're working on being intentional about how we ask this question, involve all of our communities in answering it, so that what we end up with is community-led development on community-owned land. And I'm gonna say just super briefly how it works, and we'll have a lot more time to talk. If I was gonna talk about how it worked, we'd be here all night, and we don't want to do that. So I'm gonna say it really briefly, and then we'll be available for questions and to talk about it more. But basically, a community land trust acquires land, whether that's through purchase or through donation, and so once the community land trust acquires land, then the community land trust retains it permanently. So the community land trust holds the land in perpetuity, and it comes out of the open market and it enters into community use. And then whatever homes are developed there, or if there are homes there, if the homes are rehabbed, et cetera, that could look a lot of different ways. Those homes are kept permanently affordable with a ground lease for the land that they sit on and a resale formula that governs the resale price. So people build equity in their homes. The homes are inheritable. They act like any other home. It's just that when they go to be resold, there's a formula that governs the selling price so that people get their equity back and something else, but it can't be sold at market value, on the open market value. So again, that's how community-led development on community-owned land works in a community land trust. So just want to check my time. How am I doing on time? Okay, I'll wrap it up soon. So right now, as I said, we're in the process of building our membership and introducing ourselves in all our communities and listening to what people's ideas are. We're going to have 3 other community conversations this week. And we also have an event coming up on October 29th as part of the talks at the Craftsbury Outdoor Center, Forest to Homes, How Forests Can Support Housing Solutions. That's on the 29th. And along with this sort of outward-facing work in our communities, we're also working on building our business plan and our fundraising plan, and building the organizational capacity and organizational infrastructure, and seeking the funding we need to actually do this work. And we have a very handy donate button on our website if you'd like to use it. We welcome that all the time to do exactly the work that I've been talking about. So with that, I think I'll pass it to Leanne, Representative Harple. And thank you very much for coming tonight.
Hi, so I'm Leanne Harple. I am the rep for Albany, Glover, Greensboro, and Craftsbury. Sorry, I usually try and do that in alphabetical order so nobody feels favoritism. I guess I didn't do this tonight. So I don't know that I need the whole 10 minutes, but what I am here to talk to you about tonight is a bill that I am getting started. I received the first draft just a few days ago, and so the bill began with Dave Stoner. It was really his wonderful idea, who I've worked with talking about housing. And it is a bill to address the challenges that people have in being able to afford septic if they're trying to build houses in a rural area that's not already hooked up, or if those costs are too prohibitive, and that is to have composting and incinerating toilets, which are already legal to have in Vermont, but you're supposed to have backup. And so the idea behind this bill would be to get rid of the barriers that are keeping us from being able to build those houses in rural areas, and specifically to build them on tracts of land that are 200 plus or 250 plus acres. Now I'm going to talk more about the pros and cons of that and how that might change actually in the bill. We'll see. But the original idea, which is in it right now, is to get it on those large tracts of land as cluster housing that could then use those composting or those incinerating toilets. And the reason it is tied to land use in our sort of first idea about it is twofold. One is because there will be potentially some pushback from people who still have environmental concerns about this, although I'll talk about that in a second too, as well as to preserve some farmland that may be past its farm use but need a new life. And so there could be sort of like a land trust that through either conservation easements or a subdivision map, and perhaps the subdivision map is the better way to go, would designate a certain amount of open space that would be preserved if we could also use this other certain space for the cluster housing. So that's the basic idea behind the bill. The rural caucus, which I am a member of in the Vermont legislature, which is a tripartisan caucus, meaning that it's Democrats, Republicans, and also our progressive members, have heard about this bill, and there has been some support for it. And I did talk just the other day with the chair of the Housing Committee, Mark Mihaly, who lives in Cabot, and he was also very excited about it, as was Representative Molly Burke, who works down in the Bennington area and introduced a similar bill that did not get adopted a few years ago. But I believe the reason that hers didn't get adopted was not necessarily that people didn't want to look into composting toilets and incinerating toilets. It was that at that time there was a whole lot happening around revisions of Act 250, and so the timing was just not really good timing. Things have to sort of rise to the priority level. There's a very small percentage of bills every year that actually get passed compared to the amount that get proposed. So what I was going to say about the incinerating and the composting toilets is that this is something that is not new to Vermont. In fact, both Vermont Law School and the Craftsbury Outdoor Center have successfully used this model for a number of years. And so that speaks very highly of it. In talking to Representative Mihaly, his biggest suggestion was to think about separating the bill from the actual land use requirements that are part of the original draft, because for one, we may be able to get the support of the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, the VLCT, more if we're not trying to propose legislation around land use. And that support could be very important in seeing this bill passed successfully. And the other is that it does limit, if we do that, use by all Vermonters to only those who would live on these tracts. So there are pros and cons to it. I mean, the pros are that it would have this other dual purpose of preserving land in these rural farmlands for new life, and we need to make sure that we're doing that, but limit its use. So I'm going to look into that. He had suggested a list of other VLCT members and also the Deputy Commissioner of the Community Land Trust and another representative that I could talk to about residential building codes and also just those kinds of issues, and get their recommendations on whether or not at this point we should separate those two pieces. So I can't say for sure yet whether that's going to happen, but that is sort of one of the pieces to figure out right now. But mainly it is meant to be a solution for where water and sewer is just not financially feasible. So and I'm also going to get in touch with the environmental committee and members of the housing committee on that, but it is gaining support. We've already had representatives who say that they will co-sponsor this and are very excited about seeing its progress. So I think that is, that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm happy to take questions on it, but as I said, this is still in draft form. So I just kind of wanted to update you on the progress that we're making on that.
Thank you, Leanne. And thank you, Dave.
Wait, really, Dave is the one who should be thinking. I'm just his tool.
Yeah.
Oh wait, can I say one more thing?
Yeah,
Sorry, do I
please
still
do.
have? Oh, I have 4 minutes left. Just the other thing that I would say about this process is not about this bill itself, but just that the process of having people who aren't state reps, who are really caring, knowledgeable community members, come up with a bill and utilizing their state reps to then see that idea through this legislative process, I think is one of the other big takeaways that I wanted to make sure that people realize. Because we do have a citizen legislature. Your legislators, whether I'm your legislator or you have another one, are your neighbors. And so that is the idea, is that we are supposed to be taking the ideas like that come out of these floor dinners and seeing what we can do to help turn those into a reality. So in addition to just this bill, myself and many, I can't think of a single legislator that doesn't think we need more housing. So we all want to take your ideas and see them through. So please utilize that.
Here. Yeah, I think in addition to creative solutions to housing, I think what all the resources represented or organizations represented here are all about how we're caring for our neighbors and each other. I think I wanted to read the Headwaters mission statement, and I didn't, and I'm going to, but I think it is a common mission statement for the table here, I can say tonight, is to care for our neighbors and strengthen our communities by creating permanently affordable homes and access to community-owned land. And I think, there's like variations on that theme, but we're all about caring for our neighbors and each other, which it seems like it's a really good time to be focusing on that. So I really appreciate everybody being here tonight and this panel. And with that, let's take about 15 minutes for questions from the audience, and then we'll have questions over cider, thanks to Mary Lou who brought some for us. Fan, you have a question.
I'm just curious on the home share model, whether you also have access to funds or people who can help people with homes that maybe are not yet ready to have someone live with them separately or needs to be upgraded. So it's
And
No.
Rick, can you restate the question a little
Yeah,
bit?
so the question is, what about if somebody has a home and they need some funds to make it ready for someone to come live with them? We don't. And so what we would have to do is guide people to places where those funds could be available. Again, I'm not ensconced in that. It could be a VHIP program, or it could be some other state program where those funds would be available. But we would guide someone to those funds because we do get those calls. People have a home, but maybe it's a basement apartment, but there's no egress that would need to be there for a person living in that. Or they have a second bathroom, but it's not working and they need some work, and they would need the funds for that to happen. We don't do that, the funding that we have, but we would have to guide someone to a program that would be able to help.
thank you.
We have a question.
Oh, Rick, is the program for the guests are single individual people, or can you have a single parent, or?
Yeah, so the question is in home sharing, does the guest have to be an individual? And the answer is no, they don't, but in most cases they are. So for the host, the minimum requirement for someone to be a host, bless you, is to provide a private room, shared or private bath, and then shared common areas. In some cases, we have people who have an in-laws apartment, an ADU, or a completely separate unit. And in those cases, then we're able to help house a couple, a family, a single parent with children. So we have been able to do that to a lesser degree. Most of the time, the guests are going to be a single individual.
Thank you.
mortgage?
Can you restate that?
Tim is wondering how someone that's at a 30% AMI for Orleans County, approximately $32,000 for a family of four, can afford a mortgage. What they've done is, through financial analysis, they've determined how much of a mortgage payment that party could pay and still stay within the 30% range. 30%, again, 30% of income is the suggested target for housing payments. And obviously the way that that's done is that mortgage is subsidized and discounted. But that's how it works.
So you back into it?
Yes, yeah.
Mortgage to the bank or the habitat? Is it mortgage to the bank or the habitat?
Preferably the bank. Preferably the bank. Habitat has done some of their own mortgages when discounted banking has not been available, but preferably through a bank. Yes?
I'm wondering if that capital fund that you said rolls forward to the next program, that doesn't discount the mortgage price, the sale price for the buyer? How is there money to, who funds it? The buyer, the people that live in it? Fund the house, or Habitat funds the house?
We fund the house initially, but we also along the way, we receive money from the mortgages. We receive money from tax credits or tax sale credits, and those reimbursement grants that I mentioned. Does that answer the question?
I guess I'm not formulating my thoughts very well.
Rick might be able to help you on that. Rick Ely.
Do you want me, I think I can explain.
Yeah, I guess.
And I'll use some made up numbers, but a little illustrate.
Okay.
In very round terms, we anticipate that homeowners will incur a mortgage equivalent to roughly 25% of the construction cost of the home.
That's a good answer.
Okay? That remaining 75% is paid largely through a combination of state tax credits, state affordable housing grants, private foundation money. I was trying to figure this out at dinner, Ken, but I think we're working with at least a dozen different granting agencies, and the numbers vary from $5,000, which we're happy to get, to $220,000, which we're really happy. When that person sells the home, and let's say, let's use 1,000 again, just to give a, because I can do the math in my head, and say they pay $250 for it. Let's say they sell it some years from now and say the home has a value of $1,100, so it's gone up 100 appreciation, if you will. The homeowner is entitled to 25% of that appreciation. It's a slightly more complicated formula, but I won't bore you with the detail. So effectively, they would get back the $250, they were 25% of what they put in, plus 25% of that upside. The remaining subsidy stays with the home. So the person they would sell it to would go through a new qualification process. We're still sticking with those affordability metrics, 30 to 80% of area median income. Did I say that right? That's it. Area median income. So the home is in effect permanently affordable with that subsidy, the 750 or the 75%, staying with the home over time and capturing a portion of the appreciation that we like to think naturally occurs with the home, if for no other reason than, you've got at least some inflation nearly all the time. Does that address?
I think it does.
So, Rick, is this going to be on the test?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It is a complicated formula. It's easier to see it on paper.
I thought you were throwing that to me when you said Rick has an answer.
Oh,
I'm sorry, did you mean Rick?
Thank you. Any other questions out there in the audience?
It does not right now in the first draft, but I'm not done talking with the Ledge Council about that. We are gonna be meeting hopefully later this week, and he said he has a number of questions, so it may be that that's coming up. I'm still learning about how this is all working. I don't mean to like pose myself as like an expert on any of this, but it is not right now.
Rick has a question for Rick.
Okay, and I'm just gonna go one behind you since we've heard. That's okay. We'll get to you, Lori.
So, Leanne, I'm trying to figure out, does your bill apply to, let's say, tiny homes? And does it have to be in a tiny home development? Or can it apply to an individual who only has enough money to buy a tiny home and has the ability to place it somewhere and septic is out of the question?
So right now, the way that it is, we're looking at sort of cluster development homes. I think that would be something that, as we figured it out, the land trusts could sort of figure out what would be the zoning laws, that the town had that they wanted to do. Those kinds of, it's not at the level where those kinds of details are in it yet. As I said, this is, really the first draft of a bill that's going to see a lot of changes as we have these meetings and as I reach out to the list of people that I need to now get involved. But it is not in that level of specificity yet.
Rick for Rick.
I'm just curious, can you talk a little bit about the failed situations? I know it's hard to be, without being specific on this.
Yeah.
But how do you manage things that fall apart?
Yeah.
So every home share match ends. And some end because a guest now has found maybe a job somewhere else. But there are times where, for whatever reason, even when they call the case manager and they try to get the two of them to agree on something, I moved in with you, I agreed to wash the dishes every night and to make sure I cleaned up in common areas, but invariably I stopped washing the dishes every night and my shoes are left in the living room. Sorry, Rick. And so the case manager will work with us to do one of three things. One is to change my behavior, and so that we go back to the original agreement, or maybe we change the agreement and you say, okay, you don't have to wash the dishes. I do want those shoes picked up, but you're going to pay $50 more a month because you're not doing the dishes. Or the agreement comes to an end. And our case managers are really good at helping to make sure those are done with grace. And again, it doesn't happen in every case, but in most it will. I'll say it again, if we do our due diligence, if we do our background and reference checks, if we do the interviews, the introductions, the 2-week trials, and stay present for them, the case managers check in regularly, quite often at the beginning, to make sure that you and I are doing okay in our match, less so after a year or 2 years. There are some people who we don't hear from. 5 years in, we're not even sure if the match is still going. We have to double check on that. But really, the case managers work on making sure that when you would like me to leave, or I'm deciding to leave the match, that it's done respectfully and gracefully. So, yeah, great question, Rick. Best question from a Rick tonight.
Joanne.
Yeah, I have a question about composting toilets. Is this to address a cost or a site issue? Because, I know the composting toilets at the outdoor center, and every time you use the toilet, it has the picture of how it works, and it seems like they wouldn't be any less expensive than a traditional. At least the system that they have there, because it seems pretty complicated and engineered, and there's many parts to it.
Yeah, I think for an individual homeowner, it'd be to address the costs. And I was also thinking of a follow-up to the question that was just asked, is that Another thing I should say is that is one of the reasons, like a question like yours about which homes it would affect is one of the reasons that Mark Mihaly and others are suggesting that maybe separating it from the land use issues so that those decisions aren't really something that is tied up in the law but are instead more available with less restrictions. So that is sort of the reason we're considering that change. But it would be to address the costs of restrictive costs of being able to build based on.
So what's the savings?
I do not have that answer written down, but I can look into that.
Because you need to have you still need to have a gray water system.
Somebody in our group suggested, based on the information that they have, experiential information, is up to 50% less than the septic system, which is significant.
Yeah.
I suggest we move to cider. And first of all, I want to thank a wonderful audience for all of your great questions, and whether you're here tonight just learning about some of these things, or whether you're longtime supporters of some of these organizations or supporters of new organizations that just turned up. We appreciate you being here tonight, and thank you for coming. And I want to thank Rick Singari, Leanne Harple, Kent Hansen. I'm Linda Ramsdale. I don't think I ever said that. Sorry about that. It's been really wonderful to have you here, and we do have cider in the back and invite you to stick around and chat more informally. Thank you, everyone.
I had to laugh when you were talking about the case manager, the shoes and the dishes. I was like, I need that case manager to come to my house for my kids that I share my house with.
Wait a minute.
Anne's right here.
You can do that.
Are you in a home share agreement?
I share my home with a 8-year-old and a 12-year-old, and they need that case manager that